Epstein is constantly trying to help Israel in all of the emails. There's no question about that. So Epstein also has video cameras in all the rooms. Our government magically says they can't find any of the videos. Absurd, absurd. So when you have video cameras in all the rooms and you're doing massages with underage girls and all the other terrible things that happen, obviously that's a honeypot operation. Every intelligence organization knows that. It's like intelligence 101, right?
Hi, I'm Maddie Hale and welcome to the Trump Report. Today we're going to stick with everything that's been happening Epstein related. There is so much commentary online, so much back and forth with the Republican Party over the DOJ's handling of the Epstein files release. So no better person to bring in than Cenk Uygur from the Young Turks. Cenk, thank you so much for joining the show today.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
We know that you've been covering this a lot on your show. As I said, you're the host of the Young Turks. But let's kick off with kind of what happened yesterday, which was Hillary Clinton. She spoke to the BBC. She said that she believes the Trump administration is operating a cover-up when it comes to the Epstein files. She said that get the files out. They're slow walking it, while also saying that, look, her and Bill Clinton will testify before Congress, but she wants to make sure it is public and that everyone who is brought in must be treated the same. Trump, of course, responded to the comments saying that she has Trump derangement syndrome. But I mean, what did you think of these comments from Hillary Clinton? Because, of course, this is a family that has been embroiled in Epstein's name for years, but it's also a very easy position for her to throw the attention back onto Trump.
Yeah. So I think both of those things are right. So is she correct that they're trying to distract from Trump? Of course. Bring in the Democrats. It's the Democrats who did it. Clinton. Okay, it's a classic Trump move, right? On the other hand, should they testify? Of course. I honestly don't know what Hillary Clinton has to do with it. Apparently, she never met Epstein. She did meet Ghislaine Maxwell. Maybe that's a connection. But Bill Clinton certainly should testify. But overall, is it the Democrats or the Republicans? Is itself a distraction from who actually ran the pedophile ring and what its actual purpose was. So in my opinion, the entire corporate media is gaslighting America, the UK, the whole world. It's fairly obvious that it was Israel. And neither side wants to talk about that. So they're like, Democrat, Republican, Trump, Clinton. So no.
Can you elaborate that? Because you've been speaking about this. You did an entire episode on it. Why do you think that the Epstein files all comes back to Israel?
Yeah, so look, in the beginning, I had no idea. And all I knew about Epstein was we had covered him for a long time, but is this weirdo pedophile? And it was weird that the government was giving him such light treatment all the way back in 2008, because the Young Turks is the longest running show in online history. So we were there when he first got arrested, and we're like, this is a weird light sentence, and it seems to involve powerful people, but we didn't know anything beyond that. So now two different things have come out. One is the files, and the other is the drop site news articles with not just Jeffrey Epstein's emails, but Ehud Barak's emails, Larry Ellison's emails. And what you see there is unquestionably a coordinated effort to help Israel. So Epstein procures cyber weapons for Israel. So on that alone, we're done. I mean, there isn't any civilian that happens to stumble into a cyber weapons deal for Israel. That means he's at minimum an Israeli asset and working with their intelligence agencies. Maybe he's doing it out of charity, which, by the way, he has given to the IDF as charity. He's given to nothing but pro-Zionist organizations, of course, in America. And then the connections are infinite. Every single deal he does, he puts Ehud Barak together with Vladimir Putin, which, by the way, look at that. He's one of the most powerful men on earth to be able to arrange that meeting. And then he arranges a meeting between Israel and Mongolia, Israel and African countries, but it's always Israel. It's not America. In fact, he tries to get America to bomb Iran for Israel, bomb Syria for Israel. And of course, Ghislaine Maxwell, this earlier I considered to be circumstantial evidence, but now when you put it all together, the whole picture becomes exceedingly clear. Ghislaine Maxwell's dad is legendary Israeli super spy Robert Maxwell, who stole America's nuclear secrets, not only shared them with Israel, but by the way, in order to get Israel more goodies, also shared them with the Soviet Union. So Israel has betrayed us 1,000 times over, this is just a spectacular example of it. What I'm amazed by is mainstream media in America is like, I don't see it. There's all those connections, and I don't see a single one of them. That's
But Cenk,
absurd.
what you're alleging is this. Can you find this in the Epstein files? Of course, I've been through as many as I can, but you've done an entire episode on this, and you've been covering the ties to Israel for a while now. But have you found concrete evidence in the latest DOJ files?
So the heart of the evidence is actually in the drop site news articles from Ehud Barak and some Epstein emails and Larry Ellison and other emails. But in the Epstein files, yes, there's plenty of corroboration. So in all of those, Epstein and his co-conspirators are talking about helping Israel. So that conversation happens nonstop. Then there's this really strange email where Ghislaine Maxwell is asked to be on a shadow 9/11 commission, which I didn't know that there was a shadow 9/11 commission, which makes sense because that's why it's called shadow. Now, if Ghislaine Maxwell is an Israeli spy, which I think is exceedingly likely for all the reasons that I stated there, well, that makes it even more curious. That makes you go, wait, what in the world is going on here? And when the rest of the media sees those emails, sees those articles, and they are definitive, and they go, I don't see it, it makes me think, well, then maybe you're in on it because it's impossible not to see it.
But if this is to the benefit of the IDF, the Israeli government, Cenk, then wouldn't that be to the benefit of the US just because of how close of allies they are? Do you know what I mean? That if this came across the desk of whatever government, whatever administration is in power, then they would almost turn a blind eye.
Yeah. So I want to be clear about one thing before I answer that question. So Israel, Epstein is constantly trying to help Israel in all of the emails. There's no question about that. So Epstein also has video cameras in all the rooms. Our government magically says they can't find any of the videos. Absurd. So when you have video cameras in all the rooms and you're doing massages with underage girls and then and all the other terrible things that happen, obviously that's a honeypot operation. Every intelligence organization knows that. It's like intelligence 101, right? So then and this is amazing. Epstein was so much more powerful than people realize. It turns out he was in the middle of the Iran-Contra affair back in the 1980s. And it looked like he was cleaning the planes for the CIA. The CIA would use some of these planes, and then they wanted to basically launder them. So they used Les Wexner and Jeffrey Epstein to do that. And Israeli intelligence was connected to that operation. So now, what does that mean? And that goes towards your question. That means the CIA knew. The CIA knew about Epstein since the 80s. And he ran blood diamonds from Africa. He used a port in Dubai where there's no customs. The CIA knows all of this. And now I want people to absorb this amazing fact. So the CIA knew that there was Jeffrey Epstein running a pedophile ring, raping underage American girls, and they let him do it year after year, knowing that there would be new girls and more victims and more victims. So the CIA has greatly betrayed us. So now, why? So the thing that I wanted to make clear is, yes, we know there's a blackmail operation, and we know Epstein's trying to help Israel. Do we know for a fact that Epstein is a Mossad agent who ran the blackmail operation for Israel specifically? No, that we don't know definitively yet, right? So you know the two parts of the puzzle, and connecting them is not rocket science, but technically you don't know that those are connected, and that is what our government, the U.S. government, seems to be hiding with their, with every ounce of energy that they have. So this leads to amazing conclusions, which is our government is compromised. The CIA protects predators and lets them rape American kids. And for what? For what? How did any of this help America? How is trying to drive America into a war with Iran or Syria helping America? How's procuring cyber weapons for Israel helping America? How is the Putin and Ehud Barak meeting helping America? None of this helps America. In fact, at one point in one of the Epstein file releases that just came out, Epstein and his friends joke around about how it'd be great if the stock market crashed, which, by the way, it did right afterwards, and how they're going to buy low. So they're literally rooting against America against our citizens, laughing about it behind our back, and our government goes, "Attaboy." So there's something deeply, deeply wrong with the American government. And I believe that Israel has compromised this government in massive ways.
So when you say the US government, Cenk, how far are you saying this stretches back to?
It stretches back to both administrations for sure. And in fact, that's part of what gives the game away. Which entity is strong enough to get both Democratic administrations and Republican administrations to ignore thermonuclear dirt on the other side? So Joe Biden wanted to beat Donald Trump so badly. He has 38,000 mentions of Donald Trump in the Epstein files sitting on his desk, in essence, at the Department of Justice, and he won't use it. Why? Why? It's obviously because of the CIA, and it's obvious that the CIA is compromised.
On that note, Cenk, so Nancy Mace, as you know, she's been going through these unredacted files at the DOJ where she says the files that we, the public, have seen didn't name various powerful, rich, well-connected people who had some of their information, some of their names purposely hidden or redacted. She also claimed from her research from spending time at the DOJ that the CIA has its own trove of Epstein files that exist outside of what the DOJ has in its possession. So, I mean, if you're a random American reading that from Nancy Mace, you'd be wondering, why does the U.S. intelligence agency have its own set of files related to Jeffrey Epstein that the DOJ doesn't?
Yeah, so I can explain that too. So look, first, before I do that, I'm going to tell folks why all this seems so weird, right? Because we've been taught our whole lives, including me, by corporate media, that anything that challenges any government official story is a lunatic conspiracy theory. Conspiracy theory. The government's always telling the truth. You believe a conspiracy theory? That's ludicrous. You're all insane, right? And I have to confess that I bought into that in a lot of ways throughout my life. And I'm a little bit embarrassed by it. Now, I know that the government lies. We've been saying that on the Young Turks for over 20 years, right? But I didn't know the depth of the lies. So when you go to the Department of Justice, and they're going to prosecute, first of all, in local law enforcement, then it becomes a federal issue in Miami in 2008 when they first arrest Epstein. Alex Acosta says in his confirmation hearings later for the Trump administration that it was intelligence that told him to give a light sentence to Epstein, okay? Which makes sense because the local law enforcement had caught him in a very serious pedophile ring. I mean, not just one girl, but many, many, many girls. And pedophilia is a massive crime here in America. So that we should have been talking about 20-year sentence at a minimum. Instead, he basically got to go home during the day and he used the jail as a hotel. And it was like for 6 months. It was the lightest sentence you can imagine. So that Alex Acosta, the prosecutor who made that deal, then becomes magically, for no reason, with no expertise, the labor secretary for Donald Trump. Okay, so, and he said that it was intelligence. So then you have in the files that were just released, the FBI was referring to Les Wexner, that's the guy who owned Victoria's Secret and whose money Epstein was using. They refer to him not as a victim, because I thought initially that Wexner was a victim, because why would you hand over your entire fortune, hundreds of millions of dollars, for Epstein to run it? You'd do that if you're maybe being blackmailed, right? But it turns out not being blackmailed, a co-conspirator. Okay, so why is the CIA not asking, wait, co-conspirator to whom? Like, what was the conspiracy? Because it appears the conspiracy is the taping of the powerful people. So the FBI does an investigation, and instead of the CIA picking that ball up and running to see if it's a foreign adversary or a theoretical ally, no, the CIA seems to be doing the opposite. You are not allowed to investigate that. You are not allowed to pursue that. So you better stand down. This is a matter of national security. In fact, they are not releasing the second half of the files, and their initial reason for that was national security, to which I would ask the very logical question of, wait, why is a local crime of raping an underage girl a national security issue? Normally, that would have absolutely nothing to do with national security. By telling me that it's a national security issue, you're telling on yourself and saying the CIA is definitely involved, at a minimum to cover it up. And why would the CIA cover up Russian spies or Chinese spies or Mongolian spies? There's no reason at all. There's only one country that has deeply enmeshed itself in our government, and that is Israel. So every single piece of evidence points to Israel. That is why you're seeing in corporate media Clinton, Trump, Democrats, Republicans. But whatever you do, do not talk about Israel. And that's what this is all about.
So, Cenk, what kind of material do you think the CIA has on these ties between Epstein and Israel? Because, of course, what we know is that if he did have incriminating videos of certain high-powerful individuals, that might never see the light of day. But what would the material be that the CIA would have that would mean that these 3 million files can never be released? Because the update is, just for our audience, that the DOJ has said they've made all the files they plan to release public. That's it. Of course, you have Democratic Congressman, Dan Goldman, saying that Democrats will try and hold Trump and the Bondi DOJ accountable. But, I mean, how could they? So I wonder what kind of material would be so massive that would allow them to stop at these 3.5 million.
Yeah, so that is the most logical question in the world. And if we had real journalists, and we do have some across the world, and we do have some independent journalists that are great. But if we had any journalist in mainstream media like ABC, CNN, New York Times, etc., they would ask these super logical questions. So the CIA is saying this is a national security interest. Why? How does it affect our national security? How does a local crime affect national security? Second of all, wait, is it our interest? I mean, because you definitely, CIA, no question, covered it up. So then the question is, did you cover it up because the CIA ordered the rape of underage girls in America? Or did you cover it up for an ally? So, and which ally is it? If you're not asking these questions, you're literally not a reporter. You're just a marketing executive for the powerful. And that describes most of American media. So these are not conspiratorial questions. These are obvious, brazen, surface level questions, easiest questions in the world. It's not like there wasn't a pedophile ring. There definitely was. It's not like they weren't taped. They definitely were. So where did the blackmail materials go? Why was Les Wexner never charged if he was a co-conspirator? Why was Leon Black not charged when there is a vicious rape that is described in these allegations? So was he ever investigated? Who stopped the investigation? I mean, another critical, obvious question that our media is super weirdly not asking. Who stopped these investigations? So don't tell me about Republicans and Democrats. I'm not interested. There's only two honest people, it appears. There's a couple more, but only a handful. But the two main honest guys in Congress are Ro Khanna and Tom Massey. The rest of them, I don't trust at all. When the Democrats tell me that it's the Republicans and the Republicans tell me it's the Clintons, I go, okay, I get it. You're covering up for whoever actually did this.
I mean, Cenk, if this is an issue that, if it was an issue of national security, we've seen these ties to Israel, Russia, even Libya. At one point, Epstein was trying to get a meeting with Sergei Lavrov. He's emailing the former PM of Norway. I mean, it's almost like, how does a non-government official fly so under the radar this much?
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, the reason why I talk about the media a lot is because you need the government and the media to conspire together to keep these things hidden. Because, I mean, here's how complicit some of the media has been. They then put out this ludicrous story about how Epstein might have connections to a foreign government, Russia. Oh, come on. In the files, Epstein tries to get a meeting with the Russians over and over again. He can set up a meeting between Putin and Ehud Barak, the former prime minister of Israel. But when he tries to get a meeting himself, he's prevented a bunch of times, and he tries in a lot of different ways. And the reason I brought that up here is because he then goes to this Norwegian minister to try to set up a meeting with the Russians. Now, if you're a journalist and you see that, well, obviously he's not Russian intelligence if he has to go to the Norwegians to try to get a meeting with the Russians. They see that and they go, okay, no problem. I'm going to lie anyway. I think it might be the Russians. But you look through all that and you didn't wonder if it was the Israelis, as it says, Israel. Oh, Russia. Oh, there it is. Oh, he couldn't get a meeting. Good enough. He's with the Russians. So this is patently absurd. So our government is saying, even though it's a national security concern, it doesn't have anything to do with national security. Preposterous. On its face, ludicrous. Totally unbelievable. You know what that is? That is a conspiracy theory. It's just one hatched by the government to cover up their own crimes. And then in mass, American media goes, oh, national security? I don't know what you're talking about. I'm not going to investigate that at all.
Is Thomas Massey and Ro Khanna going down this path of making the connections to Israel?
Massey mentioned Israel once, I think. So, look, everybody's scared to death of Israel. So this is what people don't talk about in polite circles and on television and in the media. But if you're off air, everybody always says, I mean, you don't want to mess with Israel. And why do they say that? Because if you're in media and you do a story that is 1% critical of Israel, there's a cottage industry in America that comes to destroy your career. And they call you an anti-Semite 1,000 times over. They investigate your life. They try to dig up dirt on you. They do character assassinations. And then they have very willing partners in mainstream media. They then give that information over to them. So anyone who talks about it in media, we talked about this with Ryan Grimm, who's at Drop Site News and doing all these great stories. I love journalism. I love great journalism. And I love independent journalists doing great work, especially at this time when they're so sorely needed and they're total heroes for it. Now, the mainstream guys are the worst people on earth. And so they'll be like, oh, you're going to character assassinate someone talking about Israel? We love it. And they come in and they start doing that. Here's a great example. Nancy Mace. Now, I'm on the left. She's on the right. She's a little wacky at times. So I'm not a big fan of Nancy Mace. But she's one of the 4 Republicans that signs on to releasing the Epstein files. Trump is furious about it, right? And Marjorie Taylor Greene's another one. Marjorie Taylor Greene is as conservative, as right-wing as it gets, right? The epitome of MAGA. And he turns on her and he calls her a traitor. How dare you want this? And Marjorie Taylor Greene said yesterday that basically he told me these were his friends and he didn't want it released because it's his friends. And what do? They did a character assassination of Marjorie Taylor Greene. She's a traitor. She's this, she's that. Then Nancy Mace is one of the other 4 Republicans. And all of a sudden, mainstream media has a hit piece on her about the 5 terrible things that Nancy Mace has done, and she's crazy, and she's terrible. Look, all that might be true, but it's basically a file that they had on Nancy Mace, which they have on every politician and everyone in media to use whenever you do something that the powers that be are not happy with. And these days in America, the powers that be is Israel. That is, they're not the only ones. Big Pharma is a huge lobbying organization, big oil, defense contractors, etc. The system itself is corrupt. Israel is only a symptom of it. It's not the cause of it. But the Israeli government logically has figured out it is super easy to capture the American government. First of all, America legalized bribery. So we could just give literally millions of dollars to their politicians. One Israeli family alone has given Donald Trump $337 million. That's the Adelsons. They gave so much, he changed foreign policy on behalf of Israel and said it out loud. Because Sheldon Adelson and Miriam Adelson gave me this much money, I said Israel can keep the Golan Heights. I moved our embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. And on it goes. So these are the things that we need to be talking about. And even Massey and Khanna have to be super careful. If you criticize Israel in a way that is not 200% verifiable, the character assassins will show up en masse and try to bury you. It's not an accident or a coincidence that that article on Nancy Mace came out after she said release the files. By the way, last one, Madison Cawthorn, another Republican, very right-wing, I don't agree with on policy. He started talking about sex parties, drug parties that Republican leaders were doing. I thought it was ridiculous at the time. I couldn't believe it. It turns out, boom, his secret file comes out. Oh, he was dressed as a girl at a party, etc. So they have files on everyone. And the minute you cross them, they put it out. And now, looking back at it, oh, Madison Cawthorn must have been right. That's why they did the character assassination.
Cenk Uygur, thank you so much for joining the Trump Report today.
All right, thank you.